afternoon, everyone. Now we have Team Kiwi Fruit. Welcome to the 2017 Champions Case Trophy competition. And we are very lucky to have our judging panel today consist of Jodie King, CPO from Air New Zealand, Stephanie Perrin, Global Fund Analyst from Milford Asset Management, and also Hamish Nuttall, who is the Virtual Chief Digital Officer of Digile.io. So you will have 10 minutes to present. When you have 2 minutes to go, I will hold up this sign. And when there is 1 minute to go, I will hold up this sign, and I'll just be seated here. And this would be the same for your Q&A as well. 2 minutes to go, one sign, 1 minute to go, this sign. And at 10 minutes, I will be cutting you off. So teams, you may begin when you're ready.
Air New Zealand has experienced tremendous success. You've got good profit, healthy growth, and exceptional customer satisfaction. Moreover, you've just won the award for the world's best airlines. Kia ora. I'm Patrick, and with me this afternoon is Sarah, Nathan, Miliana. And we're proud to present to you our strategy, Flying High, to ensure that Air New Zealand continues to do exactly that. Facing Air New Zealand are two key drivers, namely being growth in Asia and high competition, which has been influenced by a drop in fuel prices. To address these two key drivers, we have devised two tactics, being future focus, which taps into the South American market, and value add, to add value for your consumers to ensure that customer satisfaction remains at its high. This will result in an increased competitive advantage in a fragmented market, and to grow the company and just as importantly, the New Zealand economy itself.
So what is Air New Zealand's current position? Well, first of all, you currently have 190 aircrafts in your fleet. You're expected to expand this by 36 more by the year 2020. In addition to this though, you are 42nd in revenue out of all airlines listed currently. Further, you only have one existing route to South America, which is Buenos Aires.
So when we take a look at your competitive landscape, we see that Qantas, American Airlines and Air China are your biggest competitors in the industries and the places that your company currently is. We see that your competitive advantage, however, to beat these airlines is the fact that you are the best airline in the world. With highly known for innovativeness and quality and also a strong New Zealand culture, your company is able to beat these by targeting specific markets. And that market is China. The growth of China has been fantastic for Air New Zealand and will continue to be. Even though it only takes up 12% of arrivals, it is growing at 28%. Now, these consumers don't prefer the low-cost carriers, which is why your company is perfectly positioned to be able to use this market and use it as a hub from traveling to South America and North America. So, when we look at the consumer in more detail, we see that these Chinese consumers are normally middle-aged and they have the medium to high income levels. They're normally in families and in groups, with group travel to New Zealand from Chinese consumers rising at astronomical levels. We also see that these people, they want to experience the world. They want to breathe the air, taste the food. They want everything that the places they go have to offer. Which is why we've moved on to our next strategy. But before that, we analysed some alternative strategies. Now these are the ones that we didn't progress with. We thought about expanding the size of your fleet more than you already do so. However, as seen recently with Qantas, this is not always necessarily a good idea. We also considered launching a low-cost carrier ourselves to compete with American Airlines. However, their sheer size means that this is not the place to beat them at their own game. We additionally considered increasing the amount of flights to the USA, Australia, and in China. However, with the high competition in these areas and the highly saturated market, it is not the most feasible area to move into, which leads to our strategy, Flying High. With moving a future focus into moving into the South American market and being that hub from visitors going from China through to South America, and additionally having a value added to the consumer's journey with added rides to and from the airport and other initiatives.
The first tactic is future focus. New Zealand's location is geographically significant. It is within a key part of the Pacific Rim, meaning that all tourism that goes into the Americas flows through a hub such as Auckland. This tourism comes from countries such as Australia and Asia. Conjoined with this is the emerging South American demand. In the Asian countries, there is a demand to travel to these South American countries and to experience those countries and the culture within those countries. So, being with its geographical significance, Air New Zealand can use that significance with its Auckland hub to connect the Asian market to travel into the South American market. To enter the South American market, you can co-brand with a subsidiary. This will allow Air New Zealand to lower their barriers to entry, such as the costs and by pooling resources. It will also, co-branding the subsidiary will also allow Air New Zealand to have more leverage when negotiating things such as air freedoms, as Air New Zealand will be needing to fly over multiple countries. As seen in this map, at current, Air New Zealand is flying to Buenos Aires. Within the first year of this strategy, the plan is to fly to Rio and Quito, both in Brazil and Ecuador respectively. The second year will continue to expand flights into Colombia and Chile.
So in addition to expanding your operations, we want to look at growing your company as well as providing additional value to your consumers, who are the core of your business. You can do this through stopover tours. Stopover tours look at targeting the Asian region. As we know, Asian travellers like to travel in groups. By providing stopover tours, they can see all that New Zealand has to offer. The way these tours operate is that travellers travelling from Asia, say to South America or the US, will inevitably have to stop over in New Zealand. While they're there and during their layover, they can go on New Zealand tours. These tours will provide them a taste of New Zealand and show them everything New Zealand has to offer. These tours will significantly help you in reducing your costs, as it's well known that direct flights tend to increase operational costs for airlines. And lastly, it will benefit the local and national economy significantly by driving more consumers into the New Zealand region. But we don't want to stop there. Additional services your company can offer can look at partnerships with Uber and Didi. Didi being the primary ride-sharing service within China. These partnerships will make travelling far easier and provide that additional satisfaction to your. And look at group discounts for tourist travel. We can attach both on the stopover tours as well as group travel.
So how are you going to implement this strategy? Well, within 2017, we have noted that you're expecting 3 Boeing 787s to arrive. Now, these are the perfect plan for these long-haul flights between Asia, New Zealand, and all the way over to South America. This will also be the time period where you will implement your Didi and Uber application into your app. This will allow this high-tech Asian market to have that ability to not only get from their home to the airport, but also from your airport around Auckland and back. This will also be the time period where you will begin your tours, thus really maximising the impact that you will have with this Asian market as you're beginning the hype of your new routes emerging. This will also be when you're sourcing your freedom of air rights, which is a critical part of your plan to expand into South America, as you will very well know. This will be the time where you will see what partnerships and what organisations will be applicable to you and will work with your current infrastructure. Going on to 2018, this will be when you begin your flights into South America, expanding your airlines, getting some more notoriety from that. On to 2019, we will expand further into South America, thus growing your base and diversifying yourself. And on to 2020, you will increase your ability to reach Northern America with your current heavy presence. Overall, this strategy has allowed you to increase your global penetration. This helps you to adapt to your changing market and allow you to diversify to survive and prosper into the future. This will allow you to consider and increase your competitive advantage as well as your customer satisfaction, which is so very important to Air New Zealand and New Zealand in general. This will be done through implementing your app and really targeting this tech-savvy Asian customer that you really want to maximise with this new route. This will then solidify your New Zealand tourism by giving them a little slice of New Zealand to take with them on their journeys. This strategy will not only allow you to adapt to the changing forecast, and we now welcome any questions.
So your strategy is one of pulling in Asian tourists through Auckland, New Zealand as a hub onto South America. So what are the facts or the statistics in terms of thinking that Asian tourists have an interest in South America?
Well, South America was a key growth strategy going forward, definitely for your airline. So South America is a key hub that it hasn't quite been tapped into just yet. And New Zealand is positioned in the Pacific Rim and is noticing quite a lot of layovers and stopovers. So we really wanted to take advantage of that fact and really capitalise on that system.
And in addition to that, your current route to Buenos Aires seems to be quite popular from tourists travelling from Asia and having to stop over in New Zealand already. So to maximise that on that, then you can further expand into South America, thus driving that interest when they go home.
A significant part of the strategy seems to be based on travellers from China preferring to travel in groups. That's historically definitely been the case, but there's evidence that that's changing as people get more ambitious and adventurous. So given that Chinese tourists are travelling more as individuals or just couples, how do you plan to address that?
So we've seen most of the research saying that actually the tourism is actually going up in groups. Specifically with Discover New Zealand, they found that more people are wanting to travel as groups in these Chinese areas. However, if they do choose to travel as individuals, we feel as though by adding that sort of Uber and adding also more elements to their, by adding more to the app and by adding more benefits to the consumer, we feel as though even though they're not necessarily traveling in groups, they'll still feel the benefits. And rather than having to travel the other way in order to get to the South American market, these individuals will still want to come through New Zealand.
Can you talk a little bit about the costs to implement this strategy?
Yeah, if I can direct you towards index slide 1. So we have noted that your aircraft, which is getting approximately 36 new aircrafts by 2020, will cost about $2.3 billion. In order to update the app, our estimates show that it's between $100K and $300,000, and the tour deals will be between $200,000 and $500,000, given the fact that they'll be both in Auckland and Christchurch, which are your two airports that can accommodate these long-haul flights.
You mentioned around a potential of having a co-branded subsidiary in South America. Can you talk me through a little bit more about what you meant there? Was that partnering so they would be flying, or would we code share, or how would that work?
So a co-branded subsidiary would ultimately mean that we do partner with an airline that is just as reputable in South America, known for their customer service and prioritising safety, just as Air New Zealand does. That would mean that we create a subsidiary which we co-brand, and that would allow having that airline's current knowledge of the South American market to capitalise on that knowledge when entering that South American market.
So that would be that they would do not the domestic but the sub-region routes. We would take them over there, and then the co-branded subsidiary would take them all through all the different countries in South America.
Yes, that's correct.
You talk about Chinese market not preferring low-cost carriers. What's your evidence for that?
So we saw a statistic that said that fewer than 2% of all flights in 2013 within China region, they were actually the second lowest country for 2% of flights were on low-cost carriers. That the Chinese market were the second lowest country in order of how much they wanted to fly on these low-cost carriers.
And generally, low-cost carriers are more popular with shorter flights. Flights out of the Asian market, especially where it's heading now, tend to be quite significantly longer, and longer flights are far more popular with the long-haul travels.
Can you just talk a little bit about fuel costs and how you think that's going to impact the industry in New Zealand for the next few years?
So, with the fuel costs, they have been decreasing rapidly over the last few years. However, there's been a slight increase at times, which means that we expect there will be a slight amount of decrease in competition in New Zealand, as it is not all of your key competitors aren't based in New Zealand. So therefore, you have that advantage of being able to access these longer flights without having to have these. So, for example, American Airlines, the majority of their flights would have to come to Auckland, whereas your company would still be able to benefit from those shorter flights, even as fuel costs rise.
In terms of making the route work, China through Auckland as a hub and into South America, have you thought about all of the setup costs, or where you'd need to put all of your engineering, maintenance and crew? Would that still remain Auckland based? How would you sort of make that work?
Well, moving into Auckland, Air New Zealand would keep their maintenance and those such resources within Auckland, where they currently are. That's also another point of creating a co-branded subsidiary with someone who already is currently established within South America and do already have those resources. So that's another advantage of this co-branded subsidiary, is already having resources set in South America, allowing Air New Zealand and the partner to pool resources essentially to minimise those costs and take advantage of resources that are already available there, such as maintenance teams in South America.
And in addition to that, the routes coming throughout major Chinese cities you already have established. So all those costs have already been incurred. We're now maximising the potential to get more customers utilising that route and going into South America from that.
Uber has recently sold out of China, so there's brand awareness there is presumably reducing. So why have you selected them as a partner?
So we selected Didi as for the Chinese market, and Uber would be primarily more for the New Zealand market, helping them to take them both to and from these tours. And if indeed they wanted to stay for a longer amount of time than just a simple stopover, say they wanted to stay 1 or 2 days, then this Uber would be able to take them to and from Auckland Airport. So Didi is specialised more in China, and then Uber for New Zealand.
And did you consider or discuss political instability, inflation, other sort of economic conditions in South America in terms of its attractiveness as putting, a large amount of growth into that region?
So we've seen that the specific countries that we've initially chosen are the ones that are probably in the South American market the most sort of stable. So we haven't gone for those sort of unstable countries. As the stability is called into question, it is able then for your company to then make the decision about where would be the best time for your consumers to travel to which individual cities.
And further on top of that, these locations, especially Rio de Janeiro, is capitalising on the great press that they got during the Olympic Games, which people are more inclined now to travel to these locations.
I just want to come back to low-cost carriers. You said that 2% of people in China are paraphrasing travelling on low-cost carriers. How do you know that's demand, not supply? I mean, is it just not the case that there aren't low-cost carriers and they haven't had the opportunity to travel?
So we see specifically that there are a lot of supply there, specifically with Air Asia operating a lot of flights, but they haven't had a lot of that demand there. So it is a reduced demand because the majority of these Chinese flights are longer flights. And so the international flights, the long-cost carriers have seen almost no sales in that area.
With sort of promotion of the Auckland to South America route for Chinese tourists, did you think about the risk that they might pull away from sort of Chinese tourists exploring New Zealand more fully and utilising the domestic network, so that cannibalisation
Zealand, travelled from the Chinese mainland and just Asia more specifically to Auckland is quite strong, and growth there, you'll see a lot of growth there over the next coming years. But our strategy looked at really honing in on other potential untapped areas, such as the layovers. This is where the tours really came into play. So anyone that hadn't considered exploring New Zealand before, they can now at only a small additional cost over what they were originally paying for.
So that strategy aims to tap into those who are only just stopping over in Auckland and then moving onwards, whereas those who are coming to visit China are more like come to visit New Zealand from China, they're more likely still to stay there, and it's not really cannibalising that market.
Is there any evidence that this stopover tour thing has worked elsewhere?
Yes, a lot of consumers now, and a lot of travellers specifically, both travelling in groups and by themselves, they really want the full experience. So if they find an opportunity to spend a day in another city they hadn't considered earlier, whether that be for financial reasons